Hey everybody, Matt Ellis with you for the latest edition of the Cricket Library podcast, and a very special treat for us today. We get to hear the Michelle Goszko story, one of the most passionate cricket people you'll ever meet. Over 100 games for New South Wales, a double 100 on Test debut, and she even picked up a one-day international wicket, which no doubt will give a fair bit of airtime to here today as well. A stroke survivor, and someone who continues to inspire people to love and play the game through her coaching and her emerging commentary career. So it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy the Michelle Goszko story on the Cricket Library podcast. It's a very warm welcome to the Cricket Library podcast. Michelle Goszko, it is wonderful to have you joining us.
Oh, thank you, Matt. I'm very excited. The Cricket Library podcast is my favourite podcast. So I've heard some great things on here, and I'm very pumped to be invited to be on it today.
Oh, gee, you're rapidly becoming my favourite guest with those warm words of praise to start things off. We do have a background of knowing each other, so I'll try to be as unbiased as possible throughout. But let's give our listeners a bit of an insight, Michelle. Your passion for cricket, you've played at the highest level. You've done lots of things that we'll talk about later on. But where was the fire lit for you?
Yeah, look, it was probably, I'm a 70s baby when I was born, but in the 80s, watching cricket on TV and World Series cricket, things like that, I was just so excited just to see cricket on the TV and all the coloured clothing and all that sort of stuff. And I was into a lot of different sports. I probably picked up my first sort of tennis ball in the backyard when I was about 3. So,
wow.
And I was into motorbike racing, I was into soccer, I was into cricket, I was into tennis. And actually I was doing tennis lessons when I was 8. Mrs. White was my tennis teacher. And instead of hitting it actually in the court, I was trying to smack it outside the whole court. And she said, well, that's great, except I think cricket might be better for you, that you can try and smash a ball over the boundary. So that's sort of where it started. And my dad was the coach in under 10, and my brother was there. So I was 9 when I first started playing competitive cricket, but with the mighty North Richmond Cricket Club. But speaking years later, to Lee, who was the sort of president of North Richmond, he said to me they had to have a meeting to see if I was actually allowed to play cricket with the boys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was the first female to play at the club, and they had to decide whether, to allow me to play, and thankfully they did. So I'm very thankful that I was allowed to do that, and I played there till under 16s, where I captained the boys. So, and no helmets back in those days, Matt, as you know. It was pretty difficult. On synthetic on a Saturday morning that's probably had a bit of rain on it. You learnt how to evade a good bouncer because they didn't want to get hit by a girl or bowled out by a girl. So I learnt good cricket skills on a Saturday morning.
Wow! And was there a female pathway as such back then? Like, did you have representative cricket that you could play with the girls, or was it just wholly and solely Saturday mornings with the boys?
I got into Penrith Cricket Club. I think I was 13. I played 5th grade out there, which was open age, and it was so much fun. We only had sort of 8 players every week. And back then it was sort of retire at 50. But through there, Dot and Bob Brewer actually saw me playing some cricket, and they were the ones that sort of told me about representative cricket. And year 8, I think I played for, back then it was Met West, which led into CHS seconds. And from there it led into, there was an under-18s team. So I think I was 14 when I first played in the under-18 side for New South Wales back in the day. And then they also had city versus country. So there wasn't a whole lot of cricket around, but there was a little bit. And to find out whether you made a team or not, you'd be waiting with the snail mail to see if you made the team back in the day. And you'd hope that letter didn't get lost. But yeah, they had some small pathways back in the day. which was good. And I mean, I think I was 12 and I saw Australia play India women at North Sydney Oval. I think it was 1992 or something like that. And I remember watching India get 100 runs in 100 overs. I just turned to my dad and I said, I'm not playing like that. I want to be a bit more aggressive. And I think Belinda Clark, actually, it might have been 1990. Belinda Clark got 100 on debut, I think, or someone got 100 on that day, or the next day, sorry. And that was my first sort of venture into watching women's cricket. And I couldn't believe that there actually was a little pathway there that we could go.
Yeah. And do you think actually that whole idea of you can't be what you can't see, which is really helping the growth of girls' cricket and the female pathway being a lot more established in 2022 than it was back there in the 90s. Even that little taste for you, do you reckon that was a key moment?
Yeah, it was. And I mean, I was lucky that my mum and dad supported me sort of playing cricket or playing any sport to that point. But I remember going to, I think it was called the Blues Brothers cricket clinics back in the day.
I went to them as well.
Yeah, and it was so good. I think Mark Waugh was there, or Steve Waugh, Wayne Holdsworth, all these sort of male players. And I was the only girl, but it was so good being able to do that. And then I thought, well, and if there was another girl, it was like, oh my gosh, there's another girl here. This is unbelievable. But, like I found a bat that I had signed back in the day, and it had all male players on it. And, years later, a couple of years ago, actually, I saw one of the girls there. She had all female players on her bat. And that made my day to see that had happened. And there was also one of the young boys that I coached. He had Elise Perry and Alyssa Healy on his cricket bat signed. And, that was unheard of to even have a female player, let alone a boy having a female player on there. So I think they're starting to realise cricket's cricket, and there's great role models out there for females and also males.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've got 2 sons and a daughter as well myself, and I know my boys love cricket as cricket, and they'll watch the WBBL as passionately as they watch the BBL as well. So it definitely is making inroads and an impact. Now, you make your debut in the New South Wales under-21s, and I believe, we're going to talk a little bit about your bowling later on, but at the Cricket Library, we've been sort of delving through the archives. 6 for 9.
15 overs it was. And I was 17, I made that team, and I got picked as a bowler. I think I was batting at number 6 or 7. And I bowled some pretty good pace, I would say. I might be selling my bowling here, but I bowled really good outswing, and predominantly I was more an all-rounder. And it just worked. I think it was against Victoria, it might have been on that day. Everything just worked. We played 2-day cricket back then, and it was like I had a ball on a string that day, and I didn't bowl one bad ball. I was sort of nudging. There was a couple of edges through slips and things like that, but unfortunately I had a stress fracture, which, back in the day we just got told we had a sore back. But reading some notes, I actually found some medical notes. It said, little stress fracture in my back. So kind of curtailed my bowling career a little bit after that. But I certainly enjoyed bowling and being in the game. It was kind of like, and I'm sure you have it too, Matt, you have a bit of white line fever when you get the ball in hand. You can be the nicest person in the world, but you're just so much more competitive when you're not sometimes a full-time bowler, and all of a sudden you just want to make the most of those sort of overs that you get. So that was kind of what it was like later on in my career.
Yeah, and that taste at under-21s level for New South Wales. What are your recollections of breaking into the New South Wales Breakers? Now, the Breakers have this remarkable record as the most successful team in almost any sport. I think you'd have to struggle to find a more successful era than what we saw with the Breakers in the Women's National Cricket League competition. You come in and you become part of that. Can you describe what it felt like to you to first break in, and then what you learned about winning at the Breakers?
Yeah, look, I was so privileged that I was able to play for the Breakers, and I was, in there. The year before the WNCL started, so we played a 2-week tournament, I think it was, in Queensland, actually. And we lost in the final to Victoria. I got to play at the Gabba, and I was like, this is what's going on here? This is like a dream come true. Unfortunately, it was the same week that I got my HSC results, which I didn't do as well as I did, but all my teammates got around me and took me out for a lemonade to try and get me off that bad point of what happened in my HSC. But the next year we played the WNCL, and I think we played Victoria again. And sort of where we started from, we had the great Belinda Clark, who was the best leader I've ever played under. She just set the standard on and off the field of what you need to be as a professional. And back then we weren't getting paid, so but she was still the ultimate professional in everything that she did at cricket, and she just led the way so well. And I think we got 113 and we defended it. We won by 1 run. And that sort of set us on this road of it doesn't matter where you're at, you can win from anywhere. And that's certainly what happened. And we were so happy to have that sort of career where we didn't let anybody else play in a final. We lost a couple of finals, but we didn't let anyone else take that title of how many consecutive times we'd made a grand final. So it's something I look back on with pride. And unfortunately, the last couple of years, they haven't quite made that final. And there's different reasons why that's happened. But hopefully they can restore that sort of history from this year on.
Yeah, and you end up playing over 100 games for New South Wales at WNCL level, 14 half centuries. You get into the nervous 90s, so to speak. What was it like to come back in and get that 100th game under your belt?
Yeah, well, I my whole career I was pretty good at getting dropped. I think I just got, it's something I put on my resume. 3 times from Australia, and there's not many people that can say they got dropped on 99 games, which I did for New South Wales. I was having a horrid run. And I was more a confident sort of player. Lisa Kitely was the coach, actually. And I remember we were in Adelaide, and the second game of the WNCL round that was on that Sunday, and I knew I was getting dropped. So I think I went and had a couple of lemonades, and I kept getting these calls from Lisa Kitely, and I kept going, decline. I think she rang about 20 times. And Julie Hayes was next to me, and Lisa Kitely's ended up ringing her saying, can you put guys on the phone? And I was like, yes, I know I'm dropped. It's okay.
It's a shame Australia Post weren't in charge of the delivery of the news. You might have got that 100th game in sooner. Yeah,
exactly right. And, I got dropped that weekend, but Christine Briley was the head selector, I think, at the time, and just said, you got to go and get runs. And I did. I went back to grade cricket, and I think I got 100 and came back in and got that 100th game. And that was, I still look back on it with pride. There's not that many female players that have played 100 games for New South Wales. So it's something that it can never be taken away from me, but it's certainly, getting dropped so many times and having to work so hard, I think it's made me a better coach because I can understand where, stress comes from for the players or trying to maintain where you are. And I look at someone like Elise Perry and Meg Lanning, they're unbelievable players that they've been able to maintain the rage, I guess you could say, their whole careers. And, I take my hat off to them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, phenomenal resilience as well to be able to come back and just keep putting yourself out there and keep putting your hand up. And you eventually get selected for Australia, one-day international cricket against New Zealand. You run out, Gozzy, for 30.
Yeah, and, I remember getting picked in that side going, this must be an error. There's something wrong. I think I got a phone call and then a letter. And it was at Bankstown, and I remember getting picked in there, and I got told years later why. We played some trial matches inter-squad. I just was happy to be around the Australian side in the squad. I wasn't even a member of that squad. And I think I hit one of the fast bowlers, I won't mention their name, over the top of cover, one bounce into the boundary. And that's what got me picked in the Australian side because I played 2 shots and I like to be aggressive. And that game at Bankstown Oval, I remember that I couldn't afford new spikes. So
Oh,
unfortunately,
wow.
yeah, I slipped over mid-wicket. I slipped over, and unfortunately I got run out. I just had no way of getting back. But, I couldn't afford some new spikes. So that's why, when you're working for $10 an hour back then, you had to save your money for a mobile phone, so you could get that phone call. But, unfortunately I got run out. And I think actually one of the older players bought me some spikes, so that couldn't happen again afterwards. But I don't have any games of me playing, except my dad found some footage of that. So I actually watched that a couple of months ago, and unfortunately it got run out. But I was actually pretty quick between the wickets back then, Matt. Not now, but I was batting with Joanne Broadbent. Like, another legend of Australian cricket, and what a person to learn off. So I was like the baby, just looking up in awe. I guess, back in the day, I loved Bon Jovi. It'd be like me meeting John Bon Jovi, like looking at him with stars. That was me looking at all these Australian players, Fitzy, Belinda Clark, Lisa Kiteley, Joe Broadbent, like Karen Rolton, and I was just surrounded by superstars.
And you get to go over to India, Eden Gardens, 1997. You play a World Cup final.
Yeah, a bit surreal as well. I had no idea what was going on. I thought this international cricket was easy going, when I went over there. Thinking, we'll just go in, we'll just win. We were undefeated. I got a 50-odd against England, and I was really stoked just to be there, let alone play. And I walked out into the middle. We bowled first. I think we got them out for 160-odd. We were only chasing. And I went out to number 3, and walking out to the middle, I just stopped and looked at the crowd, which I should never have done because, our biggest crowd in Sydney was probably 100 people, and that was the renter crowd of the parents, sisters and brothers. And you go out there and there's 60,000 people, and they were all women. And the only men that were there were the ones holding machine guns and guns to make sure the crowd weren't, misbehaving, which was never going to happen anyway. But I looked around and I just went, oh my God, what's going on? And all of a sudden I got really anxious, and the first ball I hit, I actually was Paula Flannery bowling. I smacked it back on the full. She dropped it, went for 4, and it was over. And I just got into the middle, and Belinda Clark was there, and I went, oh, thank God for that. And she goes, pull your head into the game. You got to start concentrating. I went, okay. If Belinda Clark tells you to do something, you do it.
Yeah.
So that's the PG version. But it worked. And I think I got 30-odd, and we won. And it was unbelievable. 25 years this year, I think it is. So it's an unbelievable memory. And I just thought it was going to continue on. Unfortunately, it didn't. But I was actually very, very lucky that I got to play in that team, as I said before, surrounded by superstars.
Yeah, absolutely. And the conditions in India, had you been to India before? Was this your first trip?
Oh, that was my first trip. And my first thought when we got off, we were staying in Delhi first, and I looked out the window. I went, oh, geez, it must be cold outside. Look at all the fog. Woke up the next morning at, sort of 10 o'clock, jet lagged, and that fog was still there, and I went, oh my gosh, that's smog. So realised it was so hot and humid, and that was their winter. And look, it opened my eyes. I'm a girl that grew up in the Hawkesbury. Going to Sydney was a big trip, let alone going to India, and it just sort of opened my eyes to sort of the world, I guess, and how other people are struggling. And when you're seeing orphans and things like that, it's just really sad to see.
Yeah. And did you get to immerse yourself in the culture, or was it pretty much team hotels and cricket grounds?
No, we did, and we got to go around a little bit, and I think I got on a rickshaw, which that's taking your own life in your own hands. But there's a picture in the paper, actually, of me just sitting in there, just having a look, and we got to go to Taj Mahal as well, which is unbelievable. And it was real character building for our side. That, if you go away there now in the Australian side, you're staying in 5-star hotels. We were never doing that. We stayed at a tennis ranch, which we got moved for because there was a mice infestation sort of in the whole place of cockroaches. So we didn't get 5-star sort of things. I think we were there from early December, and Christmas Eve we were riding around, and I found the Hilton Hotel, and I thought, this is the best Christmas ever. And I went in and I actually had a spaghetti bolognese, and that was it for me. I was like, this is superb. I found my home. It was the best Christmas ever, just finding somewhere, that you could eat some food that wasn't naan bread or something else. But, it was character building for our side because we weren't just pampered over there. We had to do everything ourselves, and it sort of brought our side together a lot more. And we were well prepared, from our management staff and coaches and things on what to expect. But certainly it was, the poverty that's over there and things like that, it just really opened my eyes to, geez, how lucky we are in Australia.
Oh, absolutely, Goz, absolutely. Now I'm gonna play a name association game with you now. CMA Shillington, Claire Shillington, 90 games for Ireland. The longest, I think the third longest career in women's ODI history. She played international cricket for 19 years and 195 days. That name to you, when I say that name, what pops into your head?
Could it be a wicket, Matt? I'm not sure.
Could it be that she was your bunny in international cricket? 100% of your international ODI wickets, Claire Shillington.
I'll take that because she is a very good cricketer. Well, she was a very good cricketer, and she's an awesome person. We got along like a house on fire when I was there. Probably not after I took her wicket, which I must say it was caught by Belinda Clark. I think it was at mid-on. Not that I remember, but vaguely remembering that it was caught there. And, it was one of my best overs that I ever bowled in international cricket, Matt.
Yeah, well, your other time bowling none for 12, so the 1 for 3 against Ireland there in Dublin gives you that career average of 15. So we're talking all-rounder status here. Just a little footnote to this. So you bowl in this game, and you are one of 9 bowlers. Can I just ask this question, and this is with all due respect to wicketkeeper Julia Price, but how did she get a bowl?
Yeah, well, you know what, all wicket keepers, they're pretty good with their sort of windmill sort of actions.
Okay.
They have this front arm, it goes out straight. Leonie Coleman was the same. They actually bowled pretty well. Sort of seam up. Most of them bowled sort of outswing. And Julia Price wasn't that bad. She was actually a pretty good sort of, I would say, 8th change bowler. No, she was okay. And, she did get a bowl, which it kind of puts a dampener on my wicket, but that's okay. She'll probably say that she set up that wicket.
No, she bowled after you. So you kind of softened things up, and they thought, here's a chance. That's the only 6 balls she bowled in international cricket. So,
well, there's not many people that get to say they've done that. So she did do that.
Who took the gloves? Can you remember? Does anyone remember?
Oh God!
Might need to put that out to our librarian.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't remember who would have taken it.
Oh, no, here we go. Here we go. Some breaking news. In the official match notes on Cricinfo, I can reveal Lisa Kitely.
Yes.
Lisa Kitely kept while Julia Price bowled.
Wow. Imagine if Pricey had got a wicket. We've never have heard the end of it, seriously.
I think she'll be thrilled.
Like mine, really.
I think she'll be thrilled that she's getting mentioned in the same sentence as Michelle Goszko when it comes to bowling. So there we go.
Well, I used to have this thing that I would throw the ball, Matt. I did throw the ball. I had my elbows got dislocated when I was a kid.
Okay.
So I didn't have the ability. It wasn't past 15 degrees. I didn't change the international rules like some other bowler we know. But I couldn't help it. That's how my elbows are. So, I used to get pinged, and I never got called for throwing, but I used to get grief from those girls all the time. And I just like to put it out there. That was a genetic thing that I could not have changed.
Okay, I'm glad we've got that on the record because I know a lot of our listeners would like that cleared up. So that's been fully cleared up now. 2001, you have a cracking year in Sydney women's cricket. Lots of runs, wickets as well, all with a legal action. And that leads to you coming in for one of the biggest names in Australian women's cricket, Zoe Goss, for the tour of England. What was your mindset like? Can you think back to then? Maybe give us some insights into if you could bottle the good parts of what was going on there. What were the key ingredients to that success?
Yeah, well, 97 obviously was the World Cup year. 98, I actually went to England on the Ashes tour, and I think I played one game the whole time. So I was thinking that this cricket business is easy. I think I didn't get the most fit sort of I have been in my life in 98, and I had to fight my way back in. Probably my training, work ethic wasn't as good as it should have been. And I think going back to grade cricket, Mum always had a saying for me, be nice to the people on the way up because they're the ones to see on the way down. So for me, going back to grade cricket, I had to knuckle down and make sure that I tried to sort of make the most of this opportunity. And my mum did say that to me, just, you only got one shot at this. You need to make the most of it. And, it was tough for us because we were all working full time and I was studying at uni as well. So for me, it was tough trying to fit in, but I needed to not have these excuses. Everyone had the same sort of level playing field as what I did. So I think for me, I just went back and gone, right, let's start enjoying cricket. It's not a chore. It's something I've loved since I was 5. Go back out and enjoy it. And that was the best thing that could have happened to me, that I did get dropped, because I was able to make the most of it that season. And I love playing grade cricket. I love playing for my club. And for me, that made cricket enjoyable. And I sort of, as you said, needed to bottle that a little bit more when the tough times are on. So, and back then in the Australian side, sometimes there'd be 3 or 5 games a year. That was it. So it was a bit cutthroat a little bit for us who were on the fringes of the Australian side. So whereas I knew sort of going back to club cricket, I was going to get selected every week. And that was a bit more reassuring that, all right, well, I belong here. And I kind of didn't think I belonged in that Australian side early on. As I mentioned before, it was like rock stars, looking up to these people. So I just didn't feel like I belonged. So, that was sort of a turning point for me.
Yeah, now you get to make your test debut. What was there any fanfare, any cap presentations, or...
No,
talk us
nothing like that. I wish I'd got given my cap by someone. I think it was just given out, just handed out at lunch or something. And none of us really played in a baggy green. We had a cap because the baggy greens were funny because you couldn't put your ponytail through it.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And that was pre-helmets as well. So we just batted in our sort of baseball style sort of cap. I think that was everybody, just about, all their wide brim Greg Chappell back in the day. But yeah, that wasn't, there was no fanfare about it. It was literally, here's your cap, and that was it.
Yeah, and the game itself, England win the toss and bat. They get skittled for 100. Catherine Fitzpatrick, 5 for 29. Then you do something remarkable on test debut, a double 100. 204 off 345 balls. That's going at a fair clip in Test cricket as well. So, and 395 minutes at the crease. There's a fair bit of endurance required there to bat for that long.
Yeah, I was a bit tired after that. I wanted to go on after the game and a lemonade to celebrate. But look, that game, it fades into memory a little bit now, but I just remember standing out there going, this is the dream. To play a test, it's something you've watched on TV for so long, and how to embrace the opportunity. And I didn't have any plans about how many runs I wanted to get. I just wanted to get one. Yep. And I think I batted at number 4 that day, and I had to go in and bat, I think for about 45 minutes at the end the first day, and I was batting with Lisa Kitely, and I got that excited that I think last ball of the day I hit the ball straight to mid-wicket, and I called yes, and she's like, "What are you doing?" No, like I would have been run out by half a pitch, or barbecued Lisa Kitely. So, and she's like, "Just calm down. You got tomorrow." I went, "Oh, okay." And I was rooming with Charmaine Mason, who was just as good as Catherine Fitzpatrick. They were like a good duo bowling together. She was probably Fitzy was quicker, but Charmaine could swing the ball a little bit both ways, and she was a really hard player to play against. But I was rooming with her, and she thought she was my lucky charm after this 200. So I roomed with her for the whole 2 months pretty much. And yeah, I was lucky that she came out, and I'd sort of gone through my, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and she said to me at lunch break, like, if you get 100, I'll give you 20 quid. And I'm like, oh, you beauty. We were getting 20 quid a day. That was our payment. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so good. I can afford dinner.
Yeah.
And and I got 100. And then she actually said to me, I think it was at tea or something like that. She's like, if you get 200, I'll give you 50 quid. And I'm like, oh my God, if I get that, I can buy a steak. So I was very excited, driven by my stomach, mind you. And as it would be, I got to 194, I think, and we had 9 wickets down, and comes out to bat was Charmaine Mason. She was the last, and I'm like, oh, there goes my 50 quid. I'm like, oh, anyway, she's come out and she looked me in the eye and she's like, don't you, I won't swear, get out. We're going to get you to 200. I went, okay, all right. She was bossing me, and she defended so well out there. She kept every ball out, and I nudged my way to 200, which was unbelievable. And it was really good synergy for me to be out there with Chucky and to get that. And after the game, we went out to celebrate. So that 50 quid that I got, I ended up putting on the bar, and I got none out of it anyway. So I didn't even get a steak. So, but yeah, it was surreal that sort of my 204 equaled both innings from England. So I wish I got one more run, because then I could say I bet England on my own. But you need your teammates out there, Maddie, as you know, to help you. And I was lucky enough to build those sort of partnerships with everybody, and I couldn't have done it without my teammates.
Yeah, absolutely amazing to do that. And then you got to call Elise Perry's double 100 North Sydney Oval. Were you in comms when she raised the bat for 200?
I was actually ill that day. I was supposed to be there, and I'm getting messages from Ishigua and Charlotte Edwards is there. I think they were calling it, and Lisa Stalaker. And I'm getting messages saying, "Are you here? We want to get you out the comms box." And I'm like, "I'm sick at home." And I remember messaging Pez afterwards. I didn't get to celebrate mine twice, mind you. At least and I was so happy for her that it was such a good crowd there. I'd been there the day before, and to see so many young players out there, male and female, cheering on what was going on. And we knew that we were watching some part of history, and I'm so devastated I wasn't there the next day, because she's made history. She's made that the home of women's cricket in Australia, North Sydney Oval, if it wasn't already. And yeah, such a special player, Elise Perry.
Yeah, and you played club cricket with her as well.
I did, and her and Alisa Healy, and they were both in my under-13 squad at 12, and I had to separate them because they were talking too much. It was like, but I was very lucky enough to have them both at, back in the day, it was Balmain Cricket Club, which is now Sydney Cricket Club, and I knew how good Elise Perry would be, because she's playing first grade with us at 15, and it's lunchtime, and I'm so excited to get into my chicken kebab, and she's there eating activated almond and a banana or some random thing, and I'm like, oh, geez, you're making me feel bad, She was so disciplined, even at grade cricket back then, and she was training every single day with her dad, who's absolutely lovely, and she just set the new benchmark for those players. And I'm so proud and so happy for her to have had the career that she's had, and she's still got many years left if she likes to.
Yeah, absolutely. And For you transitioning out of cricket, so you finish up playing. How is that transition for you? You've moved on to commentary and coaching now, but what was the initial period like, and how has that transition been?
It was tough, Matt, to be honest. Cricket had been my whole life. To hang around your friends. Basically, they're your teammates, but they're your friends as well. Like, they're your mates. And, to sort of, unfortunately, it ended on a sort of a sour note for me at New South Wales. And, I got offers to go to other states, and I didn't want to play for anyone else. I was blue.
Yeah.
I was sky blue. That's all I wanted to be, was New South Wales. And it was tough. I was really lost. I was a bit bitter about it. Not to anybody in particular. It was just me. I just couldn't watch any of the Breakers games for probably 2 years.
Wow.
And now I love the commentary, and it took me a little while. I was still coaching at New South Wales in the pathway.
Yep.
And I'm really proud that I've been able to do that for 23 years straight. And I was there from the original sort of, I was working under Christina Matthews back in the day. That was showing my age now. But, I got to learn off those sort of people. So I knew sort of what to do sort of with coaching, but I doubted myself pretty much like my career as well. But now I'm a much more comfortable sort of coach. And I'd like to think I'm sort of a people person. I try and make them better people to make better cricketers.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, I think, I got to work at Cricket New South Wales as a female participation specialist, which for me, that was another dream job, to go in and work for Cricket New South Wales, let alone play cricket for New South Wales. So for me to do that, and unfortunately that sort of contract ended, but that sort of, worked in for me going in and taking the plunge, much like Lisa Sthalekar has done, and going to the big bad world with no plan of what I was going to do. But it's worked out pretty well that I've been able to start with Cricket New South Wales, commentating the Shield cricket. Mal Conn got me into that.
Yep.
And I did that for a whole year for free. I didn't get paid. I just wanted to learn how to do it. And then luckily enough, I've been picked up by ABC and still Cricket Australia as well, doing the Shield and things like that, and the WBBL. And I've done some international games. And coaching-wise, I'm coaching at UTS North Sydney Bears, the Mighty Bears. Been doing that for 4 years, and also doing my private coaching. So I've been lucky that I've been able to fall back into cricket. And when you do, Matt, when you're dealing with cricket, it's not a job, is it? It's just something that you love, and you're like, this isn't. Why am I getting paid for this? This is not that I'll tell anyone I'll do it for free, but. Not saying that if anyone's listening, but I'm happy. I mean, geez, it'd be like playing football for cricket. You're doing something that you love, so I'm hoping that I can keep doing it, and for years on end, because it's something that's deep in my heart.
Yeah, absolutely, and seeing you on Fox was a real thrill just to see the career progression there in the commentary realms. But things take a turn health wise. Can you talk us through just how you're going now and what the journey's been like for you since taking a turn last year?
Yeah, that week, so 3 days before what happened, I was on Fox, and I've got a head for radio, as you know, Matt. Thanks, Matt. But I was lucky enough to be asked to do that. Alex Blackwell actually sort of recommended me to Fox, and that day I was so scared. Again, here we go again, not backing myself. And I was lucky enough to be on there with some great people, and I think I did okay. I had some really
you did
good
really
people.
well, Goz. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I had some people coming back to me sort of saying, this is awesome, great to see you on there. That was on the Tuesday. And then on that Friday, I'd been asked by Kate Carr at Fox if I'd wanted to do a couple more games the next week. And I was so excited. it was turning out to be a great day. It was the 12th of November. I'd actually bought some new kicks at the shop, so I was excited to be wearing these new white shoes. And I coached at Cricket New South Wales Pathway, which was the first one of the season because it's COVID. And unfortunately that night I went out for some food after coaching, and unfortunately I suffered a stroke. And thank God that I'm a little fatty because I went out to get some food because that saved my life, and I was actually around people because I would have been at home on my own and probably wouldn't have made it. So I'm very lucky that I was out and those people called the ambulance and took me to hospital, and that saved my life. I was unconscious for 3 or 4 hours, had no idea what was going on. It started with a toothache, pretty much. That's what I thought it was. And Dad got to the hospital about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I remember the first thing I said to him was I was supposed to be commentating that Saturday at ABC for the WBBL, and Dad got to the hospital slurring my words, and I said to him, "Can you ring Tim from ABC and Charlotte Annabelle and just let them know I'm not coming in today, but I might be in tomorrow." I had no idea. I didn't know. And it wasn't till probably 10 days afterwards that they sort of told me I'd had a hemorrhagic stroke. So I'm very lucky that I didn't lose my life, and I'm very thankful that I can walk and talk. I've been doing rehab at the hospital for the last sort of 4 months, and I've got nerve damage down my left side and the right side of my face, which may never go away, but I'm so grateful. And what it did was it brought out the best in everybody that I know in cricket, the community. I call it the family. Gee, honestly, I was so overwhelmed in hospital. I was in there for 19 days, and I was just so overwhelmed. I couldn't see. I lost vision in my right eye, but I could hear a little bit. I heard Lisa Slaker mention my name. I said, "Why is she talking about me?" And she's talking about the stroke. And it's like, what? Oh, I think, Lisa. I have no idea. So, but yeah, I've been so blessed to have such good people, and even people I don't know, I was getting messages from, and I'm just still overwhelmed with the support that I've had, and it's amazing how I still had like caterers, I had umpires, scorers, security guards, all these random people who I've met over the years, many, many years of cricket, and that thing that Mum said to me, always be nice to the people on the way up because they're the ones you see on the way down, really resonated with me through this whole thing. And it's open, not that it did, my eyes weren't open, but it, you could be talking to somebody or see somebody, you don't know what they've gone through. I look like me again, but I know that, I've still got some deficits, but, it's a bit like mental health. You can't see it. They're not wearing a badge of honour that there's something wrong. So, just be nice to people. It's not hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And how are things tracking now? We've seen a bit of your Cliff Young shuffling on the social media pages. How are you tracking? How are you feeling? What's the road ahead look like?
Yeah, well, it's 6 months today, Matt, since the stroke.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. See, I get to talk to you. See, you're my prize. I get to talk on your podcast, which is awesome. And look, I look back on where I was and where I am now. I'm not back to, I can't run or anything yet. I've still got, they call it central post stroke, pain down my left side. And that might not get better, which it probably won't. But the Cliffy Shuffle, that was amazing to be able to trial that. And I had to do a lot of research. Probably it wasn't the best care that I got after I got released from hospital. I couldn't wait to get out of there, but it's been a struggle to find out. So what I've been trying to do is involve myself in stroke recovery groups. They've got a young stroke project thing they're doing at UTS and trying to make it easier for other people who have gone through it, because it is really difficult. I had no idea. The cognitive sort of stuff that goes on, I felt like every 5 minutes, I'd watch the end of Marley and Me. It was horrible. It was so like the emotional roller coaster that you go on. And first couple of months I couldn't even go to the shops. The sensory overload I just couldn't handle it. But now I can handle anything like that. It's fine. And I think the commentary and the cricket community welcome me back and everything like that. And even doing things like this, it really does help me. So I'm very grateful that I am where I am. I'll hopefully get back to driving and get back to work. And what my coaching looks like, I'm not 100% sure whether physically I'll be able to do that. But I can walk and talk, Matt. I'm very lucky compared to some other people that I see at rehab. And I've kind of become their cheerleader for everybody in there. Sort of saying I'm there for sort of 2.5 hours every week and sort of just cheering them on. So it's finding for me that probably I don't need the rehab as much now because I've reached that point where my muscles are sore and things like that. But for me to be able to be their cheerleader and help them, I get a lot out of that rehab as well, just doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And hopefully the road to recovery continues and we get to hear you back on the airwaves and see you back down at the nets with your players before too long.
Yeah, I hope so. And the best thing for me, like seriously, Michael Dalton's daughter who works at Cricket New South Wales, Adelaide, I call her Radelaide, and she sent me a message, a couple of months ago and just saying she's 12, if I need to talk to somebody, she's here for me and all that sort of stuff. Like, I mean, seriously, these kids these days, like the people that I've, been in touch with or have coached or whatever, that's just one example of, 12-year-olds or 10-year-olds, whoever it is saying it's great to see you or if I need to talk to somebody. Like,
yeah.
I'm so lucky and that I've got good people around me and as I said, even the people I don't know have been superb.
Yeah, absolutely, Goz, and that whole cricket family is real, and it's far-reaching, far and wide. Now, our hardest hitting question. Well, this is probably the hardest hitting question in the history of podcasts, if we're being honest. If you could take 3 people to the nets. Now, we've talked about your bowling before. What I forgot to mention, which was your T20 debut for Australia. You're involved in a bowl-off.
Yeah, how weird's that?
Well, not you personally, but the game's tied and there's a bowl-off. So you might want to think about if you would choose anyone from that bowl-off to maybe come and bowl in the nets, or it might be someone from outside of cricket. We've had all sorts of answers on the podcast for this one. Who are you taking to the nets?
Well, I'm not going to be too controversial or anything. I want to take Linda Clark now because I reckon she'd still be as good as she was back then. Yeah. And what I would do more is probably pick her brain about coaching because I think she would have been a superb coach. So she'd be my number one because I'd want to learn off her. And I would pick her brain way more than I did when I was playing. I would probably take Steve Waugh because I learnt the slog sweep off him watching it on TV.
Oh,
and
how
that
good.
was my favourite shot. And literally just watching it off TV going, what's that? Oh, okay, I'll practice that at training. Because he can bat and bowl at me, so that's good. But I would take you because... yeah.
This is outstanding.
I swear, because you are the ultimate cricket nuff, and I would take pleasure in just seeing you play cricket. And honest to God, that would be my third choice, would be you.
Oh, you are just climbing the ladder of of respect from me. I've always hoped that maybe someone might say that, and now someone has. And you're the first person to do it. So anyone who does it from now will just be jumping on the bandwagon. So you I'd love that. Stephen Waugh and Belinda Clark. That'd be some good. I'd hope they could put up with our banter.
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing. You'd ask the questions that I wouldn't think of. So then you're picking their brain, and I'm going, why didn't I think of that question? Because you're a very, very good podcaster, obviously, and I think I could listen in on what you're asking and you would enjoy the process of having to bat to Steve Waugh and also bowl at Belinda Clark. So for me, that would be the best to watch that.
Let's make that happen one day. Stephen and Belinda, if you're listening, get in touch. Get in touch. We could make this happen. Maybe at Wilson Park. Maybe we could get together there for a net.
I can see that up. I know people, Matt.
Yeah.
You know what? I did have the same on the MRF as Steve Waugh. So, and he seriously was one of my favourite cricketers ever. So I actually went to an MRF launch.
Oh, right.
So he might know my name a little bit, and I know people that know him, and obviously I know Belinda Clark. So maybe one day we can tee that up.
Yeah, I think so. Let's just add it to the bucket list of things to attend to. Well, Gozzy, we could have talked for 5 days, but we're restricted by podcast timing. So I really do appreciate chatting to you any day of the week, but really glad that we could record this and share some of your story with the followers of the Cricket Library podcast, and hope it inspires some people, hope it encourages people to love and play the game. And that's something that you've embodied your whole career as a player and as just a lover of the game. You embody all the things that we love about cricket. So thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
A massive thanks to Michelle Goszko for joining us on this edition of the Cricket Library podcast. Isn't she sounding well? It's great to hear that she's on the road to recovery and making good progress as she fights her way back to full health. And we're really thankful that she is doing so well. We're thankful that she took the time to share her story with us. What a good story it is. A real story of perseverance, overcoming adversity, making the most of her opportunities, and just that love of the game. You can hear it in her voice when she's talking about cricket. She is one of the most passionate cricket people you'll ever meet, and it's so good that she's able to inspire youngsters to love and play the game through her coaching and, of course, her commentary career. Loving her work in the commentary box and really hoping that she gets more opportunities both on Fox and the ABC so that we can hear some of her insights of the game. A very astute cricket brain and a wonderful contributor to those broadcasts and a wonderful guest. I'm sure she'll be a very popular guest with all of our listeners. If you enjoyed today, make sure you tell your friends about it. Make sure you share the love, so to speak, and you keep telling people about the Cricket Library podcast. If you like reading books, there is a book for the love of cricket, haiku poems inspired by the summer game, and you can grab that on Amazon or wherever you buy your favourite ebooks from. We are getting hard copies. They're on the way soon. And plenty more guests coming up throughout the winter, so make sure you hit the subscribe button. We look forward to your company again next time. This has been Matt Ellis for the Cricket Library podcast. Bye for now.